Thanks for staying on LN 24/7. This is Politics Now. My name is Morno Balabubo. Today on the show, we will be looking at the Northwest insecurity matters arising. Let's give you a rundown of the talking points. Alarm over terror group Lukarawa in Sokoto, tackling border porosity, role of military in curbing terror attacks. Joining us shortly on set right here in our studio in Abuja is Dr. Steve Ilobochi-Okwari. He is a security expert. He's the senior security manager, Stake Mirac International Limited, a security firm, a sociologist, security, safety and crime management consultant. We'll take a quick breather. When we come back, we'll break it all down and then we get to the conversation. Now, the northwestern region has been hotbed of criminal gangs for years in Nigeria. Jihadist groups like Ansaru have also been able to stamp their foot. The region shares a long porous border with the Republic of Niger, where the Al-Qaeda-linked JNIM and the Islamic State in Greater Sahara ISGS operate. The border with Benin Republic in Kebbi State also offers a corridor for Sahelian terrorists, mostly as a logistics route or base. Its vast forests provides buffers for terrorists and are very likely vulnerable to house jihadists fleeing military offensives in neighboring jihadi-invested countries. Now, the Nigerian military has alerted the nation to the emergence of a new terror group that is now residing in Kebbi and Sokoto states. The military high command said the new terrorist group is known as Lukarawas. Now, contrary to earlier reports, Lakurawa terror group is new. The Homango is reporting that about 6 years ago, locals in the Tangaza and Gudo areas of Sokoto raised an alarm over the suspicious activities of a group of herders operating in the Marake and Sauni forests. A police investigation at the time concluded that the armed group were merely herders and not violent. In their reports, they noted that although the police suspected the group was heavily armed, they described them as seasonal visitors from the neighboring Niger Republic. Now, do recall that last week, the Nigerian Defense Headquarters
for the month of October,
terrorists took advantage of the gaps in cooperation between both countries and exploited the difficult terrains to make incursions in remote areas in some northwestern states to spread their ideology, said Edward Buba, the Director of Defense Operations. And of course, on Friday on the show, we had a guest, who said breaking down some of what is happening. But this time around, we have a security expert who can actually help us really analyze how this all happened in the first place. Now, the terrorists, according to reports, preach in local Hausa and fulfill imposing rules and levies on local communities, and sometimes they help locals fight other terrorist groups operating in their territory to gain absolute control and wider influence. Now, according to a study that was seen by the Homango, they report that the group emerged as the district head of Bale in Gudu local government, together with the district head of the Gongono in Tangaza local government, met with Alhaji Bello Wamako, the then chairman of the Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, and discussed how to tackle Zamfara bandits. They finally reached the conclusion to hire the Lakurawa from Mali in order to deal with the Zamfara bandits. Now, according to sources, the first major attack by the Lakurawas was recorded on the 10th of August when they attacked a military base in Sokoto, killing 3 soldiers and setting a Hilux vehicle on fire. The group's present mode of attack is on the government security forces, armed vigilantes, and armed terrorists. They mostly spare civilians, conscripting them to obey radical Islamist beliefs, what they define as God's laws. So we put up a little graphic to just help us understand who these people are. Now, the Lakurawas were herders who suddenly turned militant in the wake of the Malian crisis. Their presence in communities along the Niger-Niger border in Gudu and Tangaza areas of Sokoto goes beyond the search for food and water for the cattle which they had been doing for years. And around October 2018, about 200 jihadis arrived in the Gudu and Tangaza area of Sokoto from across the border in Niger. And locals say they are heathers, light-skinned, speaking Arabic and Fulfilde languages from Mali. Now, meanwhile, the acting chief of army staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oloyede, has called for continued support from Nigerians to overcome the country's security challenges. He made this call on Sunday during his maiden operational visit to Sokoto, which is the headquarters of the 8th Division, since his appointment. Now, commenting on the emergence of the new terror group, Lukarawa Oluyede acknowledged that security challenges are inevitable, but stressed the importance of how the nation responds to them. He further appealed to Nigerians, to particularly those in these communities, to continue to support military efforts, stressing that national security and economic prosperity goes hand in hand. Wow, so that's the breakdown. Well, with me live here on Set on Politics Now is Dr. Stephen Okwari. Good to have you once again, sir.
Thank you.
It's quite really, surprising for most of us, given the progress that the Nigerian military had made in the fight against the Boko Haram insurgents, and now we have a new one in our hands. How did they miss this? Because initially they said that this is a new group, and then we say here in reports that, they've been here for like 6 years. So what's your professional, reaction to this?
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me. I want to start by saying that the military, let me first of all commend them for all the efforts that they've been doing, to see that they curb or combat terrorism in Nigeria. A whole lot of them have lost their life in the course of trying to see how to engage these terrorist groups. But I want to react to this very recent terrorist group that they said is new. I want to say that from my thinking, I think the military have become complacent. They've been, I see some kind of the military becoming relaxed. Otherwise, because this is failure of intelligence, really, because you cannot have this group in the last 6 years living within the territorial boundaries of our country. They are resident here in Kebbi, So I think it's failure of intelligence on the part of the military and also on the part of the police. Why? And also on the part of other law enforcement agencies like the immigration and the other security services that we have. Now, the military has a terrorist unit or department, anti-terrorism unit or department. The police also has a counter-terrorism unit, right? The immigration, they're also supposed to do something there. They have a role to play because these are not Nigerians. People from Mali and then Niger found their way into our country and all that. So all these security agencies had roles to play. The National Office of the National Security Advisor also has a document that is called National Counterterrorism Strategy that was enacted in 2016. When was the last time the National Office of the National Security Advisor did an M&E on that document? Monitoring and evaluation. When was the last time? I want to believe that the strategy document is to see that in the event where we are seeing terrorist groups trying to spring up, or even the ones that are already in existence, that's the whole idea that document was put together, So when we have issues like this, and we are seeing terrorist groups, or a new terrorist group according to the military, and there's a conflicting information that they've been there in the last 6 years, so something is missing somewhere.
Now, when you look at the reporting from the home angle, which I referenced, they made mention of the fact that, they came in 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, the issue of how they came in stemmed from, internal conflict, between heathers and bandits and all of that from Zamfara State. How did we get to a point whereby our local police force cannot resolve crisis within these local communities. Is the police force that distance from these local communities that they have to resort to getting help elsewhere to resolve crisis? What do you make of that disconnect?
Absolutely. You will see that there's a disconnect between the police and the civilian population. Now, when we were growing up, I recall that back in the days, the police usually do or carry out foot patrol, right? They drive to certain communities, park their vehicles, and move around on foot, have this interaction with members of these communities. Do we see that now? I don't think we see that anymore, right? The police also has what they call the community policing strategy or community policing initiative or community policing philosophy. What's the essence of the community policing philosophy or initiative? It's for the police to have one-on-one interaction with members of the public, members of this community. If the police had that conversation or interaction between the organization or the institution and community members from these communities where these attacks or these criminals have been hibernating, of course, we would have gotten some credible information right from that time. Of course, that would have been processed and would have become an intelligence where the military and the police would have worked in synergy, to see how to confront these criminal elements. So for me, it's also a failure on the part of the police, right? Because the essence, you see, we hurriedly put up policies, right? Community policing, we will go outside the shores of this country, see some policies that are working there, you come copy and paste. And once we paste, we either paste wrongly, or even if we paste rightly, we don't even carry out the policy the way it's being contained in the document.
In terms of localizing it to fitting.
Exactly. We miss it there. And during the government of former President Muhammadu Buhari in 2018, I'm pretty sure that if it was political or if he actually released the funds, over 13 billion was released by the government of former President Buhari to kickstart the community policing initiative. I'm pretty sure those monies went into private pockets because there are a whole lot of communities that don't even have an idea of what community policing is or what it's all about. Some of these things are just at the top of it that they do it. It doesn't go down. It doesn't cascade down to the essence why we have community policing initiative. It has to go down to the local people, where they see people that they suspect that don't come from their community. The effort they expect them to make is to see how to contact the police, because the police in this case is supposed to be the first responders when issues like that are supposed to be reported. Now, do they even do that? Do they even have that information that, okay, these people that we are seeing or we've been seeing in our communities, did they even report the matter to the police? That's another one. Another thing is that if they actually reported to the police, how did the police respond to it? Because we are seeing situations where communities...
They actually reported to the police.
That's the point. Yeah. Now, we have seen where community members report issues of like this to the police, and the police don't even act, So a whole lot is wrong. And it takes me, or this conversation, to the point of accountability. People are saddled with the responsibility to see that Nigerians are protected, Nigeria is secured and all that. Are they really carrying out that responsibility? If they fail in carrying out that responsibility, are they punished for it? So, what are they doing when they have been saddled with the responsibility? Nobody forced you. Even if they forced you to join the police or to join the military, you are seen to provide service, security, and safety for the citizens of the country. How well are you even taking that tax?
Okay, now let's look at this particular case in Kebbi State. One of the things that the military spokesman talked about, he said ungoverned spaces.
Sure.
Now, would you say that because we don't have enough police personnel to man everywhere, at least these places are more of like forest communities, so it would be very difficult. I'm not speaking for government, but I'm just trying to be logical.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you see that? Do you think we have enough police to be at, every area in the country as we should have?
No. We don't have enough police, and that one is no longer news. Even the police themselves, senior officers, they come out to say one of their major challenges is lack of enough manpower. They don't have enough boots on the ground, And I keep saying it, and I've said it times with that number that anything that has to do with security is not cheap, right? And every country has the resources to take care of its security. We are aware of the challenges. We have close to 230 million Nigerians at the moment, and we have less than 400,000 police officers. How do you expect that to work? You don't expect them to function with that very meager number, right? Now, the criminal elements now capitalize in the inadequacies of the police, lack of manpower, lack of logistics, lack of some other things that they capitalize on, and perpetrate this act of criminality. Now, it is not possible for us to have the police at the moment in every community. And that is why I keep talking about using the locals. If the police take the local structure of security, vigilante group, hunters association and all that, and they work in synergy, I'm pretty sure that this community where these attacks happened in the Kebbi, they also have some form of local security structure, right? Like the vigilante group, local hunters and all that. And there's nothing wrong with states also coming up with some certain security outfits that members of their communities from...
We've been crying out loud for state policing.
Yes.
Do you think if that was established, this would have not escalated to this point?
State police is also a contributory factor that would have eased, because we're talking about coming up with information. People that will be recruited into the state police will also come from these very communities. In the event where they see something and they see what they saw is suspicious, there's nothing wrong with passing the information to the federal police, so that they can say how to collaborate and see that these things don't happen, or even if they happen, it don't happen in this kind of magnitude and all that. 15 people were killed in that community. Before now, members of the communities were paying levies, taxes to these people, right? So why should people that are citizens of this country pay taxes or levies to a terrorist organization, And the government also has a role to play. How well are they even providing these dividends of democracy? I'm aware that this new or old terrorist group also induce able youths to come join their fold to the tune of about a million naira. 1 million naira is not small money. Who will see that in this current situation that Nigerians are facing, this economic...
How are these monies even entering into the country? Because I believe we have BVN. Yes. There's something I seem not to understand with finance tracing in terms of accounts and all of that. What's the purpose of having those details if we have not seen government agencies really use this innovation to actually track down cyber crime or crime, illegal transfer of money that, from a glance will be very questionable as far as security is concerned? How do we continue to miss this link, especially with regards to security, most especially in the north?
Now, you see, countering terrorism financing is not easy. It's not easy in the sense that it's a very huge and complex endeavor, right? What am I saying is very huge and a complex endeavor is that we have legitimate funds and illegitimate funds. It takes a highly trained professional to be able to establish a fund or funds to be an illegitimate one and the one that is legitimate. Take, for instance, somebody that has his company registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission in Nigeria here, and the person does business buying and selling maybe cattle or one thing, buys grains and sell when the money of the grain gets high and all that. In the event where he sells those grains and makes profit and takes part of the profit and electronically send it to an account, how do you now begin to establish that funds from a company that is registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission, transferred money into another company and all that? It takes I think it comes with a skill. Now, we have the NFIU, we have the EFCC. How well are they working in synergy with banks? Because these monies are wired through our banks. They must work in synergy. And see, I don't know how they train them, but they must work in synergy to be able to establish a fund that is illegitimate, no matter how heavy the amount of money is or small. Sometimes they send these monies in bits, right? 10,000 to 20,000. 200,000 and all that. At some point, they are already financing terrorism. And the aim of whatever they want to achieve is being achieved. Because where is this terror group? Where are they getting £1 million to give to somebody that they recruit into their fold?
Let's even talk about the present situation right now.
Yeah.
Given this information that the military has divulged to the nation, what is being done now? Is there hope that, I know there's been a lot of infiltration because of the monetary incentive, most especially for youths, but how do they curtail, what we don't want to escalate into something that becomes, something we deal with every year, just like the issue of Boko Haram?
Now, it's a huge tax on the part of the military, the police, and the government. We're talking about lack of dividends of democracy not being provided to the citizens of our country, right? There are certain persons in these very communities that cannot afford the basic survival needs. Food, shelter, they don't even have hope of even seeing what to eat the next day. Then they sit somewhere, somebody will invite them and say, come and have this. Poverty is contributing a whole lot to this. Unemployment is contributing a whole lot to this. And lack of education is also contributing a whole lot to what we are talking about here. Now, how much is the government doing? How much is the government doing to see that these youths that are there, that are able-bodied youths, how well does the government want to use them? How well does the government want to use them, right? So the point I'm making is that the government has serious responsibility or roles to play in trying to see how these issues can be addressed. The military also has very serious roles to play. The police as well, and the other security agencies that we have that are saddled with the responsibilities to see that these things don't happen. Now, Emil Duncan, a philosopher and a sociologist, said a society without crime is impossible, right? But in as much as we know that a society without crime is impossible, we should see the effort that the government and the relevant security agencies are making or doing to see that there's a lot to be done to see that we prevent these things from happening, right? Rather than reacting, rather than giving excuses when you are saddled with the responsibility, constitutional responsibility to provide security and safety for the citizens of the country. So now, the roles that the police needs to do, are they performing it? How are they doing it? What I complain about the community policing initiative. Of course, if that initiative was on ground, right, the police would have gotten this information right from the one that these people came into the country. Now, the military, how well are they synergizing with the militaries of all these other countries that are around we have Niger there, we have the multinational joint task force. How effective is the multinational joint task force? If Chad, Niger, Nigeria, Cameroon, and the other countries that are part of the multinational joint task force, if they are doing what they need to do, we won't see criminal elements call themselves terrorist group and all that come all the way from Mali, find their way. You don't know what it means to come all the way from Mali, enter Niger, see how to come up with the same group in Niger, and they found their way into Nigeria about 6 years ago, and they've been here.
Now, what does that say about the porousness of our borders? I mean, when you begin to make sense of the fact that it's just easy to walk into, a cyber cafe to say you want to process your name, and I mean, this is something that they can actually do, and they have a national identity card that says that, they are Nigerian.
Yes.
So what are some of the checks in terms of immigration policies and things that are already in place but is not effective, and what is it that is not in place and needs to be in place to avoid this free movement of people from other neighboring countries into the country?
The agencies of government that are saddled with such responsibility are not serious. We saw in this country where over 300 people from Niger and other countries had a voters registration card, and they were caught in somewhere in Zaria also. So you see, there's a whole lot that is wrong. You can see a Niger citizen, a Chad citizen, and the next thing you see them with either a Katsina state of indigenous form or, Sokoto. How did they get access to that? Are you saying that they don't know certain questions that you need to ask to know that, okay, these people are not Nigerians? When you give them the opportunity and they claim to be Nigerians, what else do you want them to do? Well, a whole lot of them, or even the streets here in Abuja, they are into trade of this things that we see, cigarettes and all that carrying on their shoulders. Most of them are not Nigerians. And they are here. These people, at the end of the day, when they are not satisfied with what they are doing, when they are not any meaningful income from what they are doing, they begin to think of how to diversify into something else, like acts of criminality we're seeing here. So a whole lot is wrong. What is the immigration doing? What is the military doing? What is the police doing? We should know what they are doing. It's not by just coming up with just policies that will end up in the paper. They will end up putting committees together. Let us come up with something that will see to use as a tool to fight insecurity in the country. At the end of the day, the materials are not used. I talked about the National Counter-Terrorism Strategy. It was enacted in 2016. 2016 to now is how many years? That's about 8 years ago.
And it's still not been implemented.
Even if it's implemented, for instance, can you compare the way and manner or the strategy that we need to use to counter terrorism in 2016 and now?
So there has to be an update.
Exactly. There has to be a review. So it goes to show that certain persons are not even thinking. You want to get into an office, you lobby to get into an office, you are appointed by the government, and you're not performing the responsibilities of that office, then why did you find your way there?
Now, I want to take you back to one of the statements that Buba mentioned. He said ungoverned spaces.
Yes.
Is that a genuine enough excuse?
No.
Because when you say governed spaces, is that a political position? Because when you look at the structure of our mode of governance, you have the federal, you have the state, you have the local government. Each of these entities has security infrastructure.
Absolutely.
So what is wrong? At the local government level, what does the security architecture look like that's supposed to cater for situations like this?
I talked about accountability, which is a problem, and we're taking it for granted. You have the DSS at the federal level, you have the DSS at the state, you have the DSS at the local government. If you go to my local government, there's a DSS officer. You have the police at the federal, you have the police at the state, you have the police at the local government, federal police. You have civil defense at the state, and it goes down like that. So the ones that are the local government that are supposed to, carry out certain investigation and all that, what are they doing? Are they truly doing what they are doing? Are they transmitting the information or report that they get from their job at the local government level to the state and down to the federal? Are they doing it? Sometimes you discover that when they are posted to the local government and you go there, you even find them. It means that the federal is not even aware of what is happening at the local government level.
Now, we had a situation whereby the local government was not empowered financially.
Yes.
With this local government autonomy,
yes,
that we are sure that monies will go straight to the local governments, even though we're seeing situations whereby some state governors are trying to frustrate the process with bills being passed at the State House of Assembly. Do you think that will also encourage people to actually be at the place of work in the local governments?
Yes, it will. Well, now that local government funds will be going straight to local government, just the way the president has the resources and the capacity to call security, state, we see him have meetings with service chiefs and the police IG and the likes. You see him, they give him briefs on how they are going about the security issues at the federal level. And it's also applicable to the state. We see where governors call state security council meeting. You see brigade commanders, or the ones states that have GOCs, the commissioners of police, the heads of immigration, and they also come for that kind of meeting. At the local government level, the chairman now has resources at his disposal. He can also call a security meeting at the local government level. The DPO of the local government, and there are some local government that they have become area commands that is headed by an assistant commissioner of police or there. People like that are called for such meeting. The head of the DSS at the local government also will be part of such meeting. Then traditional rulers also will be part of such meetings. In such meeting, of course, you are aware that now the chairman of the local government has some kind of resources, right? Enough resources to summon such local government security council meeting to discuss security issues at the local government. The chairman, the traditional rulers that come from these other their local communities to come for such meeting, at least the chairman will have some resources to mobilize them to go back, having discussed issues bordering on insecurity. Whatever information, whatever issues that they are facing in their various communities can be tabled at such meetings, right? Unlike before that, like 90% of the funds is taken away by the state governor. They will only give the chairman money for salaries and some money for little money for running costs. So now, going forward, I don't want to believe or begin to take excuses at the local government level that we don't have resources to do this, we don't have resources to do that. Beyond that, the local government chairman will have resources that they can also award certain contracts, construction or one thing that contractors can now engage youths, during that period. And all that, they say that an idle mind in the devil's workshop. When these people are idle, they think of, some of them don't even have the intention to go into crime. But because they are idle, they're not doing anything and all that. By the time you engage them, the local government chairman can also engage them, can also empower them. You train them, give them skills, Once they acquire these skills, you can empower them with the materials and they can go fend for themselves. So a whole lot can happen at the local government level that crime can be reduced drastically with these resources going straight to the local government chairman now.
Okay. Now, let's look at the role of the community, because there is so much that the government can do and there is so much that the state government can do.
Yeah.
The community people themselves, how can that, because there seems to be a lack of information, because why would you even want to bring a foreigner to come sort your battles for them? What are some of the sensitization schemes that are available for people to be educated in terms of internal conflicts and crises, who to bring in, so we don't have a situation where it escalates, where we see people lose their lives to terrorism?
Now, some people are not informed based on certain information that doesn't come to them. Now, I begin to ask certain questions about the whereabouts of National Orientation Agency. Before that,
it still exists.
Yeah, but how well are they even doing what they are supposed to be the responsibility of doing? Before now, when it was MAMSA, back in the days, under Professor Jerry Ghana, I knew that every local government had a Peugeot station wagon with a public address system on it. Then when certain information needs to be transmitted to the people, they put it in the language that the people will understand. And the vehicle goes round and around, sending this information. You can tell the people they need to live in peace with one another. There's need for them to, when they see something suspicious, they should say it and all that. All that information, these people need to be updated. You keep reminding them. Some person will see somebody that is suspicious, and they will just keep the information to themselves. At the end of the day, when the damage is done, the person will begin to regret, oh, I saw somebody like that. But the person failed to report, right? So these people must be talked to in the language that they will understand. And beyond that, I see that imams and sheikh of the Islamic faith now, and also pastors and all these other clergymen, they have roles to play in talking to the people. Because at the end of the day, sometimes these people, you see that they go to churches, they go to mosques, but what they tell them in the mosques, is it what they put in practice when they come out? The answer is no. And we have some other people that are also giving them bad information, not telling them what the Quran or the Bible truly says, right? At the end of the day, they go out and do what is completely different from what we are supposed to do, that is contained in our spiritual books. Beyond that, traditional rulers, they should talk to their subjects, And in one of my articles, I recommended that the roles of traditional rulers that was expunged from the Constitution should be brought back. Because we have traditional rulers that have a whole lot to do, but when they say certain things against the wish of the state governor, the next thing they are dethroned. So they should be given some sort of
So
constitutional
you're
backing.
saying that this particular loophole now
Yeah.
is a major challenge in terms of security.
It is.
Because we see a situation whereby some of these traditional leaders,
Yes.
I mean, they are just at the beck and call of the governors. They even depend on the governors for salary and all of that. So how do we go back to that system whereby they are empowered?
Yes, it's to bring back their roles into the constitution. The National Assembly, every tenure of each National Assembly, they keep talking about amendment. Right? So I think that it is important that the roles of traditional rulers should be brought back into the constitution, because it was expunged in 1999 or thereabout, but reasons best known to the people that expunged it. Traditional rulers are also security managers, right? In as much as we have some of them that are bad eggs that aid and abet crime within their community, right? So they must be seen to be empowered. Like, you look at the way the president or the current emir of Kano was removed, and all that, for speaking out, saying certain things that he feels that they should be done, and all that. And then the man, politics played its role, and all that. The man was removed, and to the glory of God, he's back, and all that. But the matter is still in court. Anyway.
But do you even think that commands respect?
What?
The whole drama that played out. I mean, sorry to digress, with the issue of the Kano emir.
Yeah. When you say command respect, what do you mean? That he doesn't have the respect that comes to the office, or what?
Exactly. I mean, to be disgraced at a national level, like you can just be removed. Like, how does that degrade the, well, I don't want to use the word quality now, but that respect towards that position?
And that's why we are bringing up suggestions that their roles should be brought back to the Constitution. If they have their roles in the Constitution, the governors will not have such powers to see how to take them out of office, right? Because where they say we have seen where traditional in the East, traditional rulers will sew the uniform of the political party of the governor and come for an event. Why should it be like that? If you go to check it, it's not the traditional ruler's intention, but if he doesn't do it, he will be dethroned. So they are there, and they are doing certain things out of fear, right? So the government, the National Assembly, should look at it and look at how to go about it, so that their roles should be enshrined in the Constitution, so that this back and forth about issues bordering on insecurity, because I know that they have serious roles to play. The Sultan of Sokoto is a retired brigadier general. The Gwangwam Jos is a retired customs CG. We have a lot of them that were in the military, the police, and all that. And even the Supreme Court, we have men of quality that are now traditional rulers. So why would you give them certain roles in the Constitution to see that issues bordering on insecurity can also be? They can talk to their subjects. Sometimes when they talk to their subjects also listen. They live amongst their community. They know the bad eggs within their community, So when you give them certain roles to play, I think it will have effect in what we are talking about.
Okay, so let's get back to the role of the military now, because this is already a challenge. We've seen people coming to visit. We saw, I think, say members of the House of Reps, coming to donate money and all of that. All of that is beautiful and good. But what role can the military now play to ensure that these new terror sects, the Lakurawas, as they're called, do not escalate further beyond what it is? And as it is at the moment, can their activities be curtailed?
Now, the challenge that I see there is that when you are fighting terrorism, it's an asymmetric warfare. What that means is that you don't know your enemy, because it's not written on the terrorist's head. But I'm happy that when you are giving a background to this conversation, you talked about some certain features about this.
Yeah.
So we are Nigerians, we know ourselves. So that can help the military in trying to see how to address the situation, right? Where we can help the military in trying to see how to address the situation by taking cognizance of those features, right? The moment they get into that community, they begin to look out for people that has those features, color of skin, and the likes. But beyond that, they must see how to improve on their intelligence, because we cannot have this group of people in this country in the last 6 years, and the military is just knowing. For me, it's a failure.
Well, this seems to be recurring because we, time and over again, when we examine, security breach like this, it seems as if the military is more focused on the technical aspect rather than the human relations aspect. I mean, which boils down to intelligence, like you just said. I mean, how can you break down really what the structure is in terms of our security system in situations like this? Is there, do we have experts, who are in the military, not just to carry guns or say get the Nigerian Navy or what is it? I mean, the Air Force now to go bomb a particular hotspot where terrorists are located. But in terms of this intelligence, do we really have stakeholders in the military, who will not take an information like what just happened in Kebbi State for granted?
Yes, we have a whole lot. We have the Defense Intelligence Agency. We have, the military also has military intelligence department or unit. The police has intelligence unit. So the immigration also has intelligence unit. All these agencies of government.
So why are we here?
That's the point. That's the point. Why we're here is that people that are saddled with the responsibility of carrying out these tasks, some of them are failing in their responsibilities. And it clearly shows that there's no synergy. And once synergy is missing amongst the security agencies, then you cannot achieve the aim or the goal. Seriously. Now, we know the police. The police are the first responders, just as I said, because they are the lead agency when it has to do with internal crime. Now, how well have the police responded to this? Now they are calling the military. Who has called out the police when it has to do with this? Nobody has called the IG to say, what did the police do and all that. It's the military they are calling. Why? Which the police will first of all be called to say, okay, what happened? What role did you play? When did you get this information and all that? Did you act on it? Did you not act on it? Before you begin to talk about the military. The last National Assembly, members of the National Assembly were saying the service chief should retire, they should resign, they are failing and all that. And I never heard them say the IGP then should resign. Because we're talking about internal crime. So you must have to address internal crime through the police first, before you begin to mention the military. Because it's not the responsibility of the military. It's clearly the responsibility of the roles of the police. And you are not even calling them up when issues like this arise. Now it goes to show that the police are clearly overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed. They don't have enough manpower. They don't have this, they don't have that. We keep talking about no manpower, no manpower. So what effort is the police doing to see how to recruit more? How well are they even training their officers? How well are they training their personnel?
These are the issues, clearly.
Yes.
All right, we've been speaking with Dr. Stephen Okwori. We'll take a quick breather, and when we come back, I'll be getting Doctor's reactions to the President's recent trip, and of course, what Putin has to say about African countries and the help that he has for us. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.
What makes the political system what it is today? What are the recurring issues?
Order.
The tussle for power.
An extremely problematic area.
The tension. The instability of the system. Join Ellen 24/7 as we take you inside the local and international political arena in the world of politics.
Apologize for saying that I was corrupt. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
Watch Politics Now on Ellen 24/7.
Don't miss Politics Now on Ellen 24/7.
All right, glad to know you're still on to Ellen 24/7. This is Politics Now, and Dr. Stephen Okwori is still with us. Thank you so much for your time. Quickly, I'll love your reactions to some stories regarding security. This time around, President Bola Tinubu, of course, is expected to speak on Israel-Palestinian crisis, reiterating Nigeria's stance for an immediate ceasefire and the urgent need for a peaceful resolution. Now, you're the security expert, and I'm sure you're familiar with the geopolitics of Israel's conflict with Palestine. And of course, a Trump presidency, people are hopeful that he will be able to strike a deal of some sort, and also on the angle of Russia and Ukraine war. So what is our beloved president doing what was our beloved president doing outside the country at this time, and will that create any impact? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, okay, yeah, but don't forget that Nigeria is the most black populous country in the world. Perhaps he was invited based on that as a giant of Africa. Let our president come say one or two things, because the crisis, I think, is a global thing, and we expect world leaders to make their own contribution to see that there is peace. Because with when there's no peace, there won't be any meaningful development.
But if your house is burning, and then you're going outside of your house to quench the fire, how do you make sense of that?
No. There's no really sense. I don't think it's the president should honor every invitation. At the moment our house is burning, the lives of the 15 people that were killed in Kebbi by this terrorist group matters a lot to us here in this country than what is happening in Israel and Palestine. So the president would have, for me, perhaps said if the invitation was that necessary, there's nothing wrong with sending the National Security Advisor to go there, or perhaps the Vice President, or even the Minister of Defense. It's just a mere speech that he's going to make. He goes to make that speech and they come back. The Minister of Defense can as well go for such trip, while he tries to see how to solve the issues of insecurity in our country here. Because what is paramount to us now is to see how to solve our own issues. Every country has their issues, right? So how are we doing, how well is our president doing to solve our own issues here in the country, rather than jetting out to go and see how to make a contribution to issues that have been happening between Israel and Palestine for God knows when, how those issues have been there.
Well, but people are hopeful that, a Trump presidency will definitely bring about peace in the region. I could see a lot of excitement coming in from the Prime Minister of Israel, that's Benjamin Netanyahu. But that's just by the side. I would love your reaction to Putin's promise for African countries. The Russian President Vladimir Putin on Sunday promised Moscow's total support for Africa at a conference with African officials in Sochi in southwest Russia. I'll just read in quote what he said. He says, "Our country will continue to provide total support to our African friends in different sectors." In a speech read out by the Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov to other foreign ministers, and Putin said Russia could help countries with sustainable development and the struggle against terrorism and extremism, combating epidemics, food problems, and the consequences of natural disasters. What's your reaction to this? Does Russia, I know they've been making gains with some of these countries in the Sahel. How would Nigeria benefit from a Russia-Nigeria partnership?
Nigeria has been benefiting from the Russia-Nigeria partnership. Even in 2021, there was this agreement that was signed by the Nigerian government and Russia in the area of training our personnel, our security personnel, and also supplying of the necessary arms to the armed forces, to see how to fight terrorism and other crime in the country. So, for me, I think it's a welcome development, because it's unfortunate that Nigeria as a country, the Sahel and the African continent heavily depend or rely on foreign supplies when it has to do with defense equipment and hardware. There are things that, a lot of things that we're unable to produce here in this country. Where you go ask for defense contracts now to supply equipment, once they issue those contract papers, you discover that you have to travel out of the country to see how to seek for those items on the contract list. As little as a bullet, we hardly produce here in Nigeria. Let me tell you what will shock you. Annually, the military uses 200 million bullets. Annually, the police uses 315 million bullets. And the bullet goes for $2. So
A bullet is $2.
yes. So imagine how much Nigeria spends just for bullets alone. So if we decide,
now I can understand why our budget is always high.
So if we decide to localize our defense contract policy, where the private sector can also be engaged, by way of encouraging them to see how to produce such little defense equipment and all that here, I think it will go a long way. Of course, you know that it will boost the defense economy, right? It will create jobs, right, and all that. But until we change that culture of we Nigerians seeing anything that is produced here in Nigeria as inferior, we'll have to change that mindset, so that we stop relying heavily or depending on foreign supplies of equipment and hardware.
But another question I have for you is, why is it so difficult for African countries, to come together to partner? I know you talked about the MLJTF, the Joint Task Force and all of that, but in terms of other issues like maybe production of weapons and all of that, why are we not seeing more African countries, especially those of us in the Sahel? We were talking about Niger and Mali. Yeah. What are we doing to tackle some of these security issues instead of relying on Russia or maybe the United States? Because these countries have interests at heart, and they are in the business of war.
Absolutely.
Because war is expensive. And it's profitable business.
Absolutely.
So why have we lagged this far?
You see, for me, I think one of the issues is corruption. Because an African man stands to gain more when these equipment and hardware are procured from a foreign land, right? Rather than being purchased here if they are locally produced. Now, I expect that like, for instance, we have the Defense Industries Corporation of Nigeria, that's DICON. DICON celebrated 60 years. And up till now, DICON is unable to produce certain ammunitions and arms that we expect that we should use to confront our criminal elements here. If DICON lived up to the vision and mission of its establishment, by now, DICON would have been supplying arms within the Sahel region. Countries within the Sahel region will come procure and they will make money from it, and it will boost our defense economy. There's this similar company in South Africa that does what DICON do. It's called Denel. Denel was established in 1992. That's about 32 years ago. And if you see what Denel does now in terms of arms production and ammunition, they even gone as far as producing fighter helicopters. That's what they do in South Africa. So you see, that commitment, right, where people that are saddled the responsibilities of doing this, when agencies of government are created or established, people should see that commitment rather than seeing progression. In our path, we are seeing retrogression, downfall, and it doesn't make sense to me, So I am happy that the President, Tinubu, has signed the new amended DICON Act, and all that, so that let us see what the outcome will be. But I expect a synergy amongst countries to see that what is Denel doing that is different from what DICON is doing. Denel, come over, or DICON can go and see how they can partner, and come up with measures and ways to see that we can also produce. Nigeria is the giant of Africa. So how giant are we in terms of what we are discussing here? Denel should be the company that should come to Nigeria and learn from what we have been doing the last 60 years from DICON. But the reverse is the case, what we are seeing here. So we must see that commitment, that political will. And you see, lack of continuity when policies that have to do with security starts with a certain government, another government comes in, take over. The government doesn't seem to continue with that policy. And of course, it affects the fight against insecurity in the country and all that. So a whole lot is wrong. Lack of political will, lack of continuity of policy when it has to do with security, corruption.
And the list goes on and on and on. Well, Doc, time will not permit us to take all the conversations that we need to have regarding our security in the nation. And I do really want to send our condolences to the families of all those who lost their lives in Mera community in Kebbi State. And we do pray to God that, the security agencies will continue to work with all the wisdom and the innovation and the technology that there is, and some of the ideas that Doctor has shared with us to ensure that the right thing is done and lives and property can be secured in our nation, Nigeria. Once again, Doctor, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
With us. Hope to have you not too far from now so that we can talk more about the lingering security challenges in Nigeria. Once again, my name is Morno Balago, thanking you for watching today. See you next time.